Hi, welcome to Moves That Matter. I am your host, Dr. Clyde Posley, and I am delighted to have you with us this evening, this Tuesday, 7:30, as we always meet in the same way. God bless you. Thank you so much for your presence today. I appreciate the viewership, the fellowship. Now, as you know, the currency of exchange for watching our show is that you would hit share. And I will try to give you information that is vital to your soul, vital to your body, as well as your spirit. So please find someone in your mind that you know would benefit from the Moves That Matter show. Hit share, expand it so that we can, as a culture, and a community, and ultimately society, expand our understanding and thinking about the things that matter most so we can make the best moves for the kingdom. Listen, I want to remind you just before I get into our powerful show this week about my book, More Than Icons and Images, Uncovering the Hidden Protest Narrative of the Black American Athlete in the 21st Century. You can get that book at Amazon.com. You can get it on my website at drposley.com. You can get it at Barnes & Nobles, wherever popular books are being sold. Thank you so much for how you have promoted the book and caused the book to do so well over this last year. Coming up, we have a show that is for the Indianapolis community at large, and in particular, the African-American culture. We're going to grapple with a subject that has the potency to keep us suppressed so that we can't carry our spirits around the way we need to. But what we're going to do is address it and fix it, and I have a star-studded panel of guests with me today. You do not want to miss what's going on here. You're going to want to record this and share it with so many people. It's going to bless you because your families, your children, your loved ones, but particularly you, are going to be blessed if you take heed to the information in the way that my guests explain it to you. You don't want to miss this. I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back, and as I told you before, I am excited about this broadcast. I am focused today, me and my guests, shall I say, are focused on why we as African Americans don't go to the doctor more frequently, why we don't take steps to maintain our health and get involved in preventative maintenance relative to our health. What are the stigmas that are attached to some of those behaviors? And just flat out, what can we do about it? So I have a star-studded guest of doctors with me today, researchers, physicians, and for the express purpose of addressing this from not only a theological perspective, but a research perspective and a professional perspective. These are ladies, three ladies here with us who are renowned in their own right at addressing these issues, not just for our culture, but certainly inclusive relative to our culture. And so I want to have them introduce themselves to you, and then we're going to grapple with this subject. Now, I want to say something just before they all get started. Listen, this is one of these subjects I need you to really pay attention to. Often we just blow by these sort of subjects because I'm not preaching or I don't have some guest that you may be immediately familiar with. There is not a more important show than this show, because if we can't help you stay alive in your body, you can't enjoy the Moves That Matter show like you want to or carry out your kingdom work. So please, don't sleep on this show. Tune in and pay attention to what we have to say. Dr. Kimble-Hill.
Sure. My name is Kimble-Hill. I'm originally from Chicago, and I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Michigan. I have a master's degree in engineering from the University of Illinois at Chicago and a Ph.D. from Purdue University in chemistry. I'm currently an assistant research professor in the School of Medicine here at Indiana University. I also coordinate our post-bac program, and I do a few things outside of IU School of Medicine. Also, I'm the chair of the Committee on Minority Affairs for the American Chemical Society nationally. So one of my areas of expertise and what I really research at IU School of Medicine is about breast cancer. I'm starting to look a lot more at the health disparities angles and why Black women have worse rates of death, the incidence rates, why we have different factors of onset of breast cancer, and some of those other cofactors like diabetes and how that plays into how we have reoccurrence of breast cancer. So those are my areas of expertise.
That is fantastic. Dr. Benson.
Yes, hi, I'm Heather Benson. I am an obstetrician and gynecologist here in town. I did my undergraduate degree at Michigan State University, then I did my master's at IU School of Medicine, followed my med degree at IU again, School of Medicine, and my Ph.D. in biochemistry at IU School of Medicine. So I've been around for a while, really enjoy being in this area, being in the community, and I'm really focused on trying to improve patient advocacy. I feel like, I see a lot of patients that just aren't aware at really how to advocate for themselves and advocate for their health. And so that's something that I'm very passionate about, and trying to decrease the maternal morbidity and mortality for our population.
That's fantastic. And Dr. Hardy.
Thank you. I'm Tabitha Hardy. I'm the Assistant Dean for Student Development and Academic Affairs with a graduate office at IUPUI. And so previously, I did my undergraduate work at Alcorn State University in Mississippi. And from there, I started a master's degree at Jackson State University in Mississippi. And that's where I was really first introduced to research. And regarding research, it was so amazing to me that there was so much work being done, but so little work being done by African Americans, by minority scientists. And so it was really an interest to me to go into and to think about health disparities, to think about obesity, to think about nutrition, and where we as a people fall into that. And so as I journeyed to Indiana to start my graduate degree at IU School of Medicine, that was certainly something that was in my mind. And so from there, I started to study DNA repair. Also, I studied a little bit of breast cancer, nutrition, obesity, and just thinking about health behaviors and why we do the things we do and why we don't do what we necessarily know is right for us. And so that's been a primary focus of mine research-wise. And also, I'm very focused on educating our people regardless of what your educational pursuit is or what your dream is. If you're interested in a degree, then let me know.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic. Thank you, ladies, for those introductions. One of the things I'd like to begin by saying is that on the Moves That Matter show, I grapple with with synchronizing theology, politics, and often sports where those intersect. But there's really no way to do that, in my view, without focusing on the health of the Black culture. And I do it unapologetically. It doesn't exclude our concerns about our Caucasian counterparts. But at the same time, my mother taught me as a child that charity starts at home, or love starts at home and spreads abroad. And so I want to pay some particular attention, and which is why I invited you out here, to this issue relative to African Americans, African American men, African American women. The Bible says that our bodies are temples. And in 3 John, verse 2, the Apostle John is writing a letter to a man named Gaius, and he tells him, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health as your soul prospers."
That's right.
And so what that tells us, and we're all believers here, and so what we know that tells us that there needs to be a relationship between your spirituality and your physicality, and that they're both healthy. And so that's why that's what we're talking about today. Sadly, though, many in our culture, not all, but many in our culture, don't see this relationship, this marriage, as vital to their long-term success. Why is that? Why do the people in the African American culture that we know of resist these important truths? Dr. Kimble.
So I think we have to really talk about the historical mistrust that the Black community has had with the medical community. Unfortunately, there has been historical incidents where we have been participating in research to help develop how medicine is practiced.
Yes.
But based off the system of the time, it wasn't necessarily done in humane or ethical ways. And we keep that around in our back pocket, and we keep talking about it, and it's
referencing like Henrietta Lacks. And
when you talk about Henrietta Lacks, the Tuskegee studies, there's been studies in the Native American communities.
Right.
We've distanced ourselves to protect ourselves. And because we haven't seen those good outcomes in the past, or even things like when we talk about more currently what happened with Serena Williams, where she didn't feel like she was being listened to by her doctors when she was saying there was a problem, especially since she had a medical history of that problem. So it should have been the first thing on their mind that, she has problems with embolisms. We should pay attention to this. And I think Dr. Benson is going to talk a little bit more about the problems with obstetrics and postpartum issues. It makes us a little leery.
Right.
And then I think the other thing is that in addition to those historical things, oftentimes when we're talking to a medical professional, our community isn't as educated in those areas, and so sometimes it feels like we're being talked down to.
Right.
And we don't always understand what's being said. But I'm hoping that today we can kind of break down some of those barriers.
And unfortunately, I know none of you are here to say it, but it is a truth. Racism plays a role in how we're often treated. I was just reading an article, and I think the young lady was in Michigan, I'm not sure, just January the 11th, Dr. Hardy, you know what I'm referencing.
Yes.
She went to an ER, and her family alleges that doctors there saw her and just chose not to just treat her. And she died right there in the ER as a result of just not being treated. And so there are those concerns. So racism does play a role, but we cannot allow it to control the narrative because we are the ones who are on the downside of that problem. Dr. Benson, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with my colleague here. I think a lot of times I see patients in the hospital, and I have to sit and talk with them. They're very happy to see a person that looks like them helping to take care of them, and you can instantly see the calmness or the peace that kind of comes over them. And so I try to talk to them and educate them that, it doesn't matter who is taking care of you. You have to advocate for your own health.
That's right.
Ask questions. If something doesn't seem right, it might not be. Speak up. You don't have to sit there and take less than care, I'll put it that way.
Or be spoken to as though you couldn't possibly understand what's being said. And
I think on the flip side, as a physician, I think a lot of my colleagues, my non-African American colleagues, are starting to try to close that gap, trying to fix the idea of racism does exist.
Right.
Not that it's going to go away,
and
but
in
it's
every
something
facet
that
of life. It's just something we need to accept.
So I know that in some of the areas that I'm in, a lot of our colleagues are starting to do like workshops and things of that nature to try to be aware of their innate biases, to try to decrease those biases and help them to do a better job at really caring for their patients and not letting their own personal feelings or opinions kind of block that or get in the way of that.
I was thinking just as I prepare to come to you, Ms. Hardy, about already what I'm hearing from Dr. Benson as well as Dr. Kimble-Hill is a motivating factor that should want to lead young African Americans into healthcare, into the practice of medicine. Just what Ms. Benson was saying, because you create a connection that is often missing from a physician here, from missing in the lives of patients or the minds of patients that could motivate them to do more about their health if they felt more comfortable seeing someone who looked like them in the room.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's just one of those timeless things that if you see someone that's there that genuinely looks like they care about you, that they're concerned about you, you're definitely going to be more open to that person. How many of us have been to the doctor and have really said, I don't think this person's listening to me? Like, I'm telling them what's going on with me and what's happening in my body.
I have switched doctors.
I've had that happen as well.
Come home, told my wife,
absolutely.
Listen, he's not hearing me.
Not paying attention.
He's not hearing me. He's not paying attention.
That's right.
Yeah, and they have, and often physicians have their own, they have their own, all of them, their own personal lives, own personal issues that they're dealing with. It turns out I had a physician that was kind of going through a depression about something, which was understandable, but that didn't change the fact that he was at his job,
Right,
and I needed
exactly.
that connection. Yeah.
Right. So to those folks, I say, like, take the opportunity to explore and to seek out healthcare someplace else. My mom is 83 years old, and she has been with the same doctor for the last, I don't know how many years. And I keep saying, Mom, we should get a second opinion. Let's go talk to somebody else so that we can really understand what's happening here. So take the time to do that.
And the Bible talks about much counsel, many counsels. That's okay. Dr. Benson, I want to lead. I want to ask this question, and I'll start with you. So, what are some of the health issues and diseases that Black women should be paying more attention to? It's not that they're not, but we're here to kind of up the game. So, what are some of those issues?
Yeah, so I think, one of the number one things is your cardiovascular health. I mean, you need to watch your diet. You need to make sure you're exercising. These are very big things that can make a very large difference in your overall health. Checking your sugars. If you're a diabetic, you need to make sure that you're checking your sugars the way that you have been told to do. And if you're unsure about things, ask questions. That's another very big thing. I think those are the two main things from a standpoint of my OBGYN, that's my wheelhouse.
Yeah, generally speaking, right?
Yes. I think, making sure you're coming in for your pap smear screens, coming in yearly for your annual GYN visits. Those are very important things. If you're pregnant, making sure you go to your OB visits, because those are the things that can allow your physician to kind of help to screen for other issues or other concerns, like if you have high blood pressure or if you have diabetes in pregnancy. Being that this maternal morbidity and mortality rate for African American women is so high right now. I mean, there are a plethora of different committees that are trying to figure out what is going on. Why is the maternal health so poor in the United States of all places? It's worse than everywhere else in the world right now.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And so I think, it kind of boils down to, we can't put all of the onus on the physician to try to help us. We have to help ourselves and, really take ownership so that when you go to your physician, you can be like, hey, these are my questions. These are my concerns. Let's get at it. These are the medications I'm on. Let's go. Let's figure out what's going on.
That's really profound. I want to, let me say this in a proper way, As you know, Dr. Kimble-Hill, I am the president of RED, Reading an End to Disparity in African American culture relative to breast cancer. But so often, as horrible and gruesome as breast cancer in its full state can be, I think sometimes there's the neglect among some women, from my experience of working with them. I'm certainly not a woman, but just my experience working with them. In that the neglect manifests itself like this. There are other areas that they don't pay attention to, like diet. I'm kind of springboarding off of what Dr. Benson said. Like diet and exercise and stress. We now know that some research is suggesting that stress plays a role in some of the African American culture relative to breast cancer treatment and detection, early detection. And so I'm going to go to you, Dr. Hardy, but I'd like you to speak about how important it is to pay attention to your holistic health, your diet. I'm going to end up coming back to you about this, Dr. Kimble-Hill. But there's sometimes I think some people find, and I want to be kind of, and you doctors help me. They find a lump, they detect a lump, and that's when they start being concerned about their health. And what if they had worked on their diet and checked their A1C and actually got into a regimen of drinking more water, clean water, and eating properly, and not filling themselves with foods that are full of antibiotics, various types of things. What factors? What could they prevent if they did that?
So there's lots of research out there, and basically saying that there's a better way to do your everyday. The
Say
diet-wise,
that again.
a better way to do your everyday.
that.
So diet-wise, incorporate more cruciferous vegetables. Just eat more green leafy vegetables. And I'm not talking about the greens where you put the fat back in there and have like
Right.
big
See, that needs to
hunks
be
of neck
said.
bones.
We're not trying to get you never
true.
to eat greens, but you
It's
can't.
true.
Let's eat them healthy.
Eat them healthy, right? Okay. And eat the greens, but yeah, leave the fat back out. And drinking water, exercising daily, getting the appropriate amount of sleep. And I think as females especially, like we are the caretakers. So we do tend to take care of everybody else, everyone else in our village. And then we kind of neglect ourselves. And we think of self-care as going to get a manicure or a pedicure, but self-care can also be me taking the time to eat this salad, okay? Or me taking the time to get this 30 minutes of exercise in every day so that I can be my very best. And it's something that I think I've struggled with, but I think a lot of people struggle with just taking that time on a daily basis to be their best selves.
Dr. Kimble-Hill, what are African Americans afraid of that's stopping us from doing what we know we should relative to our health? What do you think some of our largest fears are?
Well, you have the fear of the unknown, but I think when you've seen, oftentimes in our community, we don't talk about when we first get diseases and our diagnoses. We just see the end result, oh my gosh, they died of cancer. Right? We didn't talk about the longevity, what the treatments that you can do to eradicate certain types of diseases, how staying on top of your diabetes would prevent you from losing a leg, right? But we only talk about the end result of the disease. We need to talk more about what we can do to prevent getting the disease, but also being healthy in the disease. How do we make sure that we're having a whole mindset?
Right.
You know, because it's not just about being healthy; it's about being whole. So
I'm going to come back to that, too.
those are the things that we really need to think about and talk more about, and not just, oh, you know, at the funeral, you know, oh, you know, Sister so-and-so, she had breast cancer. Look at her in the casket. She looks kind of rough. She looks like she had on a wig because she probably lost her hair because of chemotherapy and radiation. We need to talk about how you can, you know, have a whole life.
Right.
And not have this just the end result of being in the casket.
Thank you so much. Ladies, have you considered this, well, please consider this notion, that often in our culture, we don't love ourselves enough to do these things. We don't see ourselves as valuable in a long-term way. Too often we don't see ourselves as valuable to the presence of our family and our presence in the family and the longevity. You know, I was talking to one of my daughters the other day, and she really blessed me, and she told me how glad she was that I was alive and healthy. And you know, after we had our little crying moment, you know, I thought about, you know, that's something that we need to consider. How important is my longevity to my family? Somewhere along the line, we have, as a culture, I don't think we have embraced loving ourselves enough to stick around, to create a scenario we can stick around. You know, Dr. Benson, what do you think about that?
I'm so glad you just asked me that, because I was thinking like, oh my goodness, that is so true. And I think that goes back historically. I mean, you think all the way back to slavery and how, you know, the whole design was to break up the family unit.
Right.
And so we are still suffering from that clearly today, where we don't have the same I guess, value for the family unit. When you compare, if you look at other cultures and you say like, oh, well, this culture over here, you know, they're taking care of their mother, their father, their grandparents, their cousins, sisters, aunts, uncles, everyone. And we don't have that same, I guess, internal drive, but it makes sense. It's because of our history. And so I think that's something that we need to try to get back to, and, you know, supporting each other, loving on one another, just like you're saying. It's something that if we can be aware of that, then we can start to make the change by affecting other people that we're interacting with our families. Then our children will do it, our children's children, and we can kind of make change that way.
You know, I have some members at my church. I'm not so much shouting them out, but they fit right here. One of them is Nadia Miller. Another one is Shaquan Eli. and another one is a member named, she's part of our women's ministry, named Lisa Simmons. Each of them speak to people about love in the African American community, expressing itself in how we eat. As Dr. Benson, as you were speaking, I was, for example, Lisa Simmons, her husband is one of the men at our church, Eric Simmons, and he was showing me a meal of chili that she made without meat. And he was saying, "Man, it tastes like meat. It was really good." And she's really on she teaches spin class. She's really on a path to change how she eats for the purpose of keeping herself around. They have one son, and Nadia Miller, as we talked about, she talks about, she works with breast cancer, where she's over Pink Forever. But Shaquan Eli, he eats. He's always talking about eating and love cooking, how that, and so one of the things we can do, I think, and I want you to speak to this, Dr. Hill, is even watch how we cook dinner at Thanksgiving and Christmas, so we can have another Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner together. Because sometimes I think we think, and our mothers, it's hard to say something to those mothers. It's hard to say something to Big Mama about, well, Big Mama, I want to be here next year. I want you to be next year. So I don't want to keep hiding this butter. Because I know you love me. Maybe we can speak a little bit about how Big Mama, Big Mama changing her love language. What do you think?
Well, these ladies know I love to cook.
I love to cook too.
So I usually do cook Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners now.
I see it on social media.
Yeah. And I'm not spilling the pie, right? Sweet potato pies, Anyway, but one of the things I made a conscientious effort to do this year when I cook Christmas dinner, because my dad is a diabetic. And as we get older, it's a little bit harder to control our diabetes sometimes.
That's right.
And the diabetes also leads to the onset of other diseases such as cardiovascular disease. And so keeping that in mind, especially since I know my dad's had some issues with controlling his blood sugars lately, I went and made sure that everything I cooked for Christmas dinner is aligned with maintaining a healthy blood sugar level.
And that's an act of love.
Yes.
That's right.
And when I do cook, that's one of the things I'm thinking about, how I'm loving on my family. So it is my love language. My husband will tell you, that's when he gets that good dinner. But particularly for Christmas this year, I cooked things that they knew. Nothing that was like strange. I didn't just go and pull out some strange exotic thing that they've never seen before. I did cabbage. I did the greens. I did green beans. But it's how I prepared it, right? But there are certain vegetables that are much better for sustaining a healthy blood sugar. Right. So, having your Brussels sprouts. Now, I sauteed them and, made them all nice and everything. But they were things he loved it. He ate it. And half an hour later, his blood sugar was still in that normal range without taking his insulin because of the foods that I had put on the table.
Right.
And so if we're conscientious about what things actually help sustain our lifestyle, our sugars, our fats.
And some changing our habits.
Changing the habits.
Maybe family legacy, changing the habits of our legacy, right?
Right. And it can be, like Dr. Hardy said, things that we like to eat already, but it's presenting it in a way honestly, when you have a little love in there, it does help how it tastes too.
That's right.
So it's just being conscientious of that. I mean, if your doctor is giving you the list of vegetables or saying these are really good for your condition, look at interesting ways to prepare those things.
Right.
Maybe it means we're doing a pumpkin or butter squash soup this time.
That's right. I'm going to go with what you said there. Dr. Hardy, what do you think about what Dr. Hill is saying?
Yeah, I think this is really awesome to really consider the way you do things and how you're prepping things. And I want to go back to something that Dr. Benson said too, because if you think about us historically, coming from our ancestral roots, we were hunters and gatherers.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And genetically, that's how we were made up, to hunt and to gather. And so being brought into this Western society, as slaves, we were given whatever was left, right? So that's kind of how we got to to the point where we started using leftovers or whatever
That's right.
was
And we
the
don't
master
have to
didn't
do
want.
that
We
anymore.
don't have to do that anymore.
That's right.
We can grow up and stop using that, and incorporate things that that are better for us.
That's right.
And we can really, honestly, there is data out there and research out there that says that we can do that and actually change some of our genes and the way that they react. So that's kind of amazing to think about, just making these changes to your diet, just making those changes and exercising more, stop smoking, stop drinking all the time. It can be helpful to, maintaining your life.
That's right.
It's true.
Ladies, I have 2 more questions, but you're going to have to come back for me to ask them. Can you do that?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right. Listen, This has been a fantastic show. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for watching. I really appreciate the viewership. I can see you all chiming in at the bottom of the screen. This show was specifically for you. It was specifically to help you love you better every day. Listen, I'm going to close the show by saying this and have these ladies back next week. Listen, in life, you're always making moves. Why don't you choose to make your moves that matter? I'm your host, Dr. Clyde Posley Jr. I'm going to see you right here next week at 7:30 on Tuesday for another fantastic broadcast where we jump right back into this issue of how we can be better for ourselves. You don't want to miss it. God bless you. I'm going to see you next week. Bye-bye.